ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतानः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनं श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। Om. Dear friends, today we have to start the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the last class, we completed the 11th chapter, the last shloka, that is Mat Karma Krut Mat Paramo Mad Bhaktas Sangavarjitah Nirvairas Sarvabhuteshu Yas Samameti Pandava. So this was the advice given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna at the end of that Vishwarupa Sandarshana Yoga. The 11th chapter was about Vishwarupa, the cosmic form, and then at the end of that, Krishna advises Arjuna to do his worship, that is Mat Karma Krut. Whatever action you do, that is Karma Yoga. He is suggesting a combination of Karma Yoga and Bhakti in that shloka. Mat Karma Krut, Mat Paramaha. Mat Paramaha means that there is nothing supreme, there is nothing greater than me. From your point of view, you should keep me as the highest goal. Me means not Krishna as such, but that Mayavachinnam Chaitanyam, that Ishvara Swarupam as the highest goal. Then Mad Bhaktaha, you be devoted to that. And then automatically, when you are devoted to that, you will be Sangha Varjitaha. You will be detached. When you are attached to something, you are detached from all other things. So Sangha Varjitaha. Then when you are also, when you have disconnected yourself from the whole world, you will be a Nirvairaha. So you will not have enmity with any being. So Nirvairaha Sarvabhuteshu. So that particular person, Sa Mam Eti Pandava, Hey Pandava, that sort of devotee, he reaches me. So that was the last, instruction or advice of Lord Krishna. So this 12th chapter called Bhakti Yoga, it is picking up from that. So basing on Krishna's advice, Arjuna again puts a question. So this is a very, very short chapter, a very short and sweet chapter having only about 20 shlokas. 20 shlokas maybe we may complete in say about 7-8 classes. But then it is a very important chapter in the sense that it means the students of Vedanta, we sometimes look down on say the Bhakti. And even the teachers, even some teachers of Vedanta sometimes look down on Bhakti. But then if we see in the overall context of say the human growth, Bhakti is a very human growth means the spiritual growth, the spiritual process. So Bhakti is a very, very important step. So this is where this chapter becomes very important. And as I said, this chapter is quite small. It has only about 20 verses. And then the first 12 verses, that is 1 to 12, they describe the two levels, that is Sopadhika and Nirupadhika. So these two words we are very well aware by this time. Nirupadhika means that Brahman which is not delimited by any Upadhi. Upadhi means Mayavachanna Chaitanya, Maya is an Upadhi. Then Sharira, this body-mind complex are Upadhis. So all these are Upadhis. So whatever God form you visualize is an Upadhi, because it is something which a human mind has visualized. So you imagine Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntham, you imagine Shiva in Kailasam, you imagine some other god in some other loka. All these things are parichinna. They are all, you have formulated those things, you have made those formulas and then set them up there, and then you are seeking some boons from them. But then the Supreme Brahman does not have any Upadhi. So that Supreme Brahman which is defined or which is mentioned as, which is described as Satyam Jnanam Anantam, it does not have any Upadhis. So that is that Nirupadhika. Nirupadhika Brahman we have seen. And we have also seen the Sopadhika Brahman in the last few chapters. So this shlokas 1 to 12, they talk about those two levels. And then Arjuna puts a question as to which is greater or which is a more advantageous strategy, which is a more useful strategy for the spiritual progress. So Arjuna's question starts like that, and then Krishna gives a detailed account of the comparative merits of these two paths. So that is 1 to 12. Then 13 to 20, it is all about the characteristics of a jnani. 13 to 20, that is till the end of the chapter, that is the characteristics of a jnani, a bhakta, a full-fledged bhakta. And this full-fledged bhakta is not different from jnani. What all qualities were described for jnani earlier in the second chapter and subsequently in the other chapters, all these are found in this man also. So which means that a perfect bhakta is also, he automatically becomes a jnani. We should also remember that in the second chapter itself, Shankaracharya was saying that whatever are the characteristics of a realized person, the same characteristics which are they are sedulously cultivated by the seeker also. Whatever characteristics a jnani has, the same qualities are sedulously cultivated by the seeker also. What is that line? That line is Sarvatra hi Vedanta Shastre Krutarthasya Lakshanani Yani Tanyeva Sadhanani. Sarvatra hi Vedanta Shastre, throughout, everywhere in Vedanta, Krutarthasya Lakshanani Yani. Krutartha means a person who has realized. Krutaha arthaha yasya sa krutarthaha. That is, he has nothing further to achieve. He has already achieved what has to be achieved. So he is a krutartha. So that means he is a realized person. Krutarthasya lakshanani. What are the characteristics of that particular person? And tanyeva sadhanani. For the seeker, the same lakshanas, the same characteristics, they become the things to be emulated, to be sedulously cultivated by a careful seeker. So that is what we saw. So that way also we can see that jnani, what all qualities have been told for jnani, they are also told here. So you can see that this bhakta, a perfect bhakta, is almost on par with this jnani. But then this man, of course, he has to do this Shravana Manana and Nididhyasana. So that is, of course, that is one rider, that rider which we have to remember. So that is how this chapter ends. So we can straight away go into the chapter because there is not much discussion. So in some chapters we have seen some long discussions, initial avatarika, etc., etc. But here, of course, there is not much discussion. We can straight away start off. Then let us read. Dvitiya prabhutishu adhyayeshu vibhutyanteshu paramatmano brahmanah aksharasya vidvasta sarva visheshanasya upasanam uktam. So dvitiya prabhutishu means starting from the second chapter. From second chapter onwards, adhyayeshu, vibhutyanteshu, and ending up to this vibhuti adhyaya, vibhuti yoga. That is from second adhyaya to 10th adhyaya. Paramatmano brahmanaha aksharasya, of that akshara brahma, here and there, that akshara brahma means that imperishable brahman. That imperishable brahman means the supreme brahman which is defined as satyam jnanam anantam. So from second chapter till about 10th chapter, here and there, aksharasya vidvasta sarva visheshanasya, one who is devoid of all these visheshanas. Visheshana means attributes, all types of description. All those descriptions are vidvasta, they are all demolished. Vidvasta literally means demolished. So that means all visheshanas are negated. In a smaller ordinary meaning is negated. So all these visheshanas are negated in that supreme Brahman. Of such Brahman, upasanam muktam. So upasana is again not, it is not like sagunopasana. Sagunopasana, where upasana means tailadhara tulya pratyaya santatihi, that is dwelling, having some stream of similar thoughts, undisturbed by dissimilar thoughts. So that is a description. Here we have, of course, upasana is not that. Upasana means Brahma Anusandhanam. So the meaning of Upasana in Nirgunopasana is slightly, we have to understand it differently. Sagunopasana we have to understand differently. Sagunopasana means it is that dhyanam, worship, and then all that, dwelling on the characteristics or merits of that God form. Whereas in Nirgunopasana there is no worship as such. So Nirguna is something to be understood. So Nirguna has to be understood, that understanding is the upasana there. Upasana means Nirguna Upasana. In the context of Nirguna Upasana, it is understanding. And that is achieved by Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi and all these statements. That is achieved by Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. So that is as a result of Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, whatever you achieve is that Upasana in the context of Nirguna Brahma. And in the context of Saguna Brahma, you have visualized certain things, you have visualized certain merits, and Saguna Brahma can be of different levels. Of course, here in the 11th chapter and also in the 12th chapter, we are talking about a Sopadhika Brahma at the highest level. That is Maya Vachinna Chaitanyam. And even above Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is again from the context, from the point of view of Jiva, you call it Hiranyagarbha. And again Maya Vachinna Chaitanyam Ishvaraha, from the point of overlording the whole thing. The same thing, the same Tattvam, you call it Hiranyagarbha, you call it Vishvara, you call it, what is this, Virat, isn't it? So these levels we are calling. So, but then we are now at that highest level. Even Saguna worship can be different levels. So Saguna worship can start from my village deity. From my village level, village, say we have got some Pole Ramma or some other Ramma. There is what is called a small stone in the middle of the village. It is so in that middle of the village you are putting some Ammavaru. You call it Grama Devata. And then that is starting from that level. You call your Nagara Devata. Like Lanka has a Lankini as some. Of course, she is not the goddess. She is the protector, or she is some sort of guardian for that Lanka. So like that, every town can have a Nagara Devata. So now you have got our Telugu Talli, now Telangana Talli. So you have got, these are all our limited concepts of Saguna Brahma, isn't it? So our own idea of Saguna Brahma reveals our own maturity level also. Our own maturity level is revealed by the type of God you worship. So you tell me your God, I will tell you what you are. That's what people say. So if you are saying that your God is protecting you only, your God is hating others, your God is throwing stones on others, so that means you have projected your own ideas on the God. God does not do all those things. So anyway, so this now we are at not at this level of Parichanna Sopadhika. We are at the highest level of, that is Maya Vachinna Chaitanyam Ishvaraha, one who is the control, one who is in charge of the whole, in charge in the sense the Chaitanya from which the whole say universe has emanated. So that level we are talking about. So Sarva Visheshanasya Upasana Muktam, that is Nirupadhika Brahma first. Then we are now coming to Ishvara. Sarva Yogaishwarya, Sarva Jnana Shaktimat, Sattvopadhehe Ishwarasya Tavacha, Upasanam Tatra Tatra Vuktam. Tatra Tatra means here and there. Here and there this Upasana has been told. Upasana means here we are talking about Sagunopasana. Sagunopasana of what? Sarva Yogaishwarya. Yoga, we saw the meaning of yoga in this 10th chapter and 11th chapter. Yoga means Ghatana. The Ghatana means the capacity to materialize all this whole universe. Ghatana means to become. Ghatana is to effect something, to create the whole universe. So this Ghatana means that Srushti, Sthiti, Laya, that is the whole universe is caused, the whole universe is sustained, and then the whole universe, this resolution of this universe, all these things, they happen. Ghatana actually means happening, let us say, okay. Happening is a better word. Sarva Yoga, so this happening of the whole universe, etc. Aishwarya, that is Samarthyam, that capability. Then Sarva Jnana Shaktimat. Now here of course, this is Jnana which is related to this creation, sustenance and resolution. This is Jnana we are referring to. That sort of Shaktimat. Shaktimat means one who is having that Shakti. Shaktimat Sattvopadhi. Sattvopadhi. This we have to see. Ishvara is so of course Maya is having all the three characteristics, Sattva, Rajas and Tamoguna. But Ishvara is not affected by this Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Ishvara is having only Sattvopadhi. Whereas when you visualize this Hiranyagarbha level, he is having that Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So in that various God forms and all that. And then from that this Akasha, Vayu, etc. we say we have, the Upanishad has described like that. So here we are talking about the Shuddha Sattvopadhi. So Sattvopadhehe Ishwarasya Tavacha, that means Ishvara is not different from you. Tavacha means yours. When Arjuna is referring to Krishna as you, he is referring to him as that Mayavachinnam Chaitanyam. You are that Ishvara. From that point of view, he is speaking. Tavacha Upasanam Tatra Tatra Uktam. Then Vishwarupadhyayetu Aishwaram Adyam Samasta Jagadatma Rupam Vishwarupam Tvadiyam Dashitam Upasanarthameva Tvaya Tacha Darshayitva Uktavanasi Matkarmakrut Ityadi. Okay. Vishwarupadhyayetu. So, but on the other hand, earlier in the last two sentences, he talked about 2nd chapter to 10th chapter. So, Vishwarupadhyayetu. But in this Vishwarupadhyaya, that is immediately preceding chapter, Aishwaram Adyam Karanam. Aishwaram is that which is having a lordship over the whole universe. Adyam means that which is the first one, which means which is the Karana, which is the cause for everything. Adyam is which is the cause, which forms the cause for the whole universe. Adyam. Then not only that, Samasta Jagad Atma Rupam. For the whole universe, whatever is seen, it is the very essence. That is the Pratyagatma. That is the inner self of everything which is there in this universe. Atma Rupam. Then Vishwarupam Tvadiyam Darshitam. That your Vishwarupa has been told. And for what? Upasanarthameva Tvaya. You have showed that thing for the sake of this Upasana. Then Tacha Darshayitva Uktavanasi. Having shown that, Tacha Darshayitva means having shown that, you had advised me, Mat Karma Krut Ityadi. So you had advised me, you do this Karma Yoga, the whole of Karma Yoga has to be dedicated to me. Karma Yoga has to be combined with this Bhakti too, because of course Karma Yoga has already got some component of Bhakti. We know that Karma Yoga means, say you are doing that Nishkama Karma, that is one. That is when you do perform Yajna, Yaga, etc., you are doing it without Phalabhisandhi. That is the simplest understanding of Karma Yoga. But along with that, you are also doing your Nitya Karma, Naimitika Karma. In this Nitya Karma, you have got lot of, what is this Panchamaha Yajnas you have got. You have got Atithi Puja, you have got Devata Puja, you have got Bhuta Yajna, then Swadhyaya Yajna. So all these things are there. So Atithi Yajna means you are giving food to all the guests. All the whoever comes, you are supposed to give food. You are supposed to give food to all these animals, all the beings. So like that, already this sort of helping others is also there. Then Devata Yajna. Devata Yajna means Devata Archana, worshipping the gods. It is already there. So Karma Yoga is already having this component of Yajna. Yajna means Devatodeshana Dravya Tyagaha, isn't it? Devatodeshana, keeping some God in mind, you are doing some Dravya Tyaga, you are doing some charitable activity, you are giving away some money to various people. So that is Yajna. So in that Yajna, when you are doing with that view of Nishkama Karma, you are already worshipping God plus helping others. So this worship or bhakti is already built in to some extent in Karma Yoga. But then here, of course, we are supposed to give greater priority to this bhakti, because bhakti is something which is rather unique. So if we want to understand bhakti, we have to read a little bit of bhakti literature also. Bhakti literature means, for example, we have to read Bhagavatam, Mahabhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam we have to read. We should also read, for example, Narada Bhakti Sutra. So for you have got Brahma Sutra or Yoga Sutra by Patanjali or Sankhya Sutra by Kapila Maharshi. So you have got Bhakti Sutra by some people. Narada, the famous divine sage, he has written what is called Bhakti Sutra. There is another Rishi called Shandilya Muni. That Shandilya Muni has also written Shandilya Bhakti Sutra. So we have to read at least these Bhakti Sutras to some extent to understand what is this Bhakti. So in fact, I just happened to go through that Narada Bhakti Sutra. I just noted down some points which I can tell Because bhakti is something which we have to understand in the proper context. Bhakti, normally the students or teachers of Advaita Vedanta, we look down upon it as something which is an inferior thing. But then it is one of the surest strategies. It is one of the surest strategies for attainment, for the ultimate, say attainment of jnana. So that is what we see in this bhakti. So if we just see this Narada Bhakti Sutra, in fact, that is something which we have to do it as a sort of supplementary reading for this chapter 12. When we are reading this chapter 12, you can just go to this Narada Bhakti Sutra, you can search on that Google, you will get Narada Bhakti Sutra, mostly with some commentary also you will get. You can just give a fast reading to that so that you can understand. If you can get hold of this Swami Akhandananda's commentary on that Bhakti, Narada Bhakti Sutra, it will be better. I happen to see that in Hindi. Those who know Hindi can see that Akhandananda Saraswati's say commentary on that Narada Bhakti Sutra. That is again a very beautiful commentary. Then in Karnataka there is one Swamiji, Sachidanandendra Saraswati, a very very well known Swamiji who lived about say 50 years ago. So that Swamiji is a very very eminent Swamiji, say belonging to the class of that Madhusudana Saraswati, Anandagiri and people like that. And he has written several books. One book is a commentary on this, say Narada Bhakti Sutra. So these books, which we can have a look at them, say for understanding this bhakti in a better way. So this bhakti, let us see what it is. Bhakti, you see, has some advantages. What are those advantages? Normally, an important factor of bhakti, an important factor which we see in any society is religion. Religion means some bhakti also. There is some devotion to God. There is a lot of religious activity. So this bhakti has certain results at the social level. At the social level means the social cohesion, then keeping some peace and mutual love, affection, mutual help, etc., etc. Certain values are maintained by this, are affected or rather achieved by this bhakti. So that is at the social level. Then at the level of the seeker, what happens at the level of the seeker, we are interested in that here. So here, in the context of Atma Jnana, what happens in the case of a seeker and what is the psychology of this bhakti, we have to see. So this Karma Yoga, if you compare it with bhakti, so in Karma Yoga, what do we see? Karma Yoga shows your confidence or trust in yourself, isn't it? Karma Yoga basically, okay, I am doing this yajna, I am doing this is for my Chitta Shuddhi. So you are stopping at that Chitta Shuddhi level, isn't it? Whereas bhakti is something like anchoring on to a higher self. Anchoring, the anchoring, anchoring, that is when a ship has to be anchored somewhere, a boat has to be anchored somewhere, that is anchoring on to a higher thing so that you are safe. Or hooking on to something else in order to, for example, some payload of some, say satellite. So when that satellite goes away, all other modules break off, but this thing is taken up by that satellite, isn't it? So this is just an example. So you are either anchoring onto something or hooking onto something in order to go forward, in order to move forward. So somebody else is helping you. There is a helping hand. The basic point is there is a helping hand in Bhakti Yoga, whereas in Karma Yoga, you are dependent on your own effort. You are dependent on your own ability. Whereas in Bhakti, you are also hooking on to God. Somebody who is pulling you up, somebody is Uddharana. Uddharana means Ut plus Harana, who is bringing you up, who is pulling you up. Not pulling up in the bad sense, but bringing you up. So that is one thing. So bhakti is another thing which purifies the heart more easily than Nishkama Karma. Patanjali Yoga and Nishkama Karma, they also give some purity of thought. But bhakti purifies the heart more easily than, say, this Nishkama Karma. That is why we call it Bhakti Rasa. Bhakti is something which is a sort of emotion. It is an emotion which you feel. When you do Karma Yoga, you don't call it Karma Rasa. Whereas when you are doing Bhakti, when you talk about Mirabai, when you talk about Surdas and what they did to their, the gods they loved, that is both in both cases, of course, Krishna was the god. So Mira's love to Krishna, Surdas love for Krishna, so Tulasidas love for Rama. So this is again, this is bhakti rasa, where his heart, the devotee's heart melts. So bhakti is something where, say, a person is emotionally involved, and then say a person is very deeply emotionally involved. So that is one thing. Then, like nishkama karma, the bhakti should be a nishkama bhakti. Of course, we see bhakti of both varieties. A person may be highly devoted. A person may be highly devoted, but every day praying for his own self. So that such cases we see quite often. Every day you pray, every day your whole world revolves around, or it is confined to your own son or your grandson. Your son has to get this, your daughter has to get this. So that is the type of bhakti which you have. So that is sakama bhakti. Of course, we need not condemn it totally. That is also good. That will produce its own result. But then, in the context of a seeker, we are not talking about a sakama bhakti. We are talking about a nishkama bhakti, where you are understanding this, say, Ishvara Swarupa, which is revealed in this 11th chapter. You are thinking about that Vishwarupa level. You are thinking about that Vishwarupa level, and at that Vishwarupa level, you are devoting yourself. So that is the type of bhakti which is that nishkama bhakti. And then this nishkama bhakti gives all virtues, in the sense that, like the last para said, madbhaktaha sangavarjitaha. When you are hooked on to that, say, the higher self, you naturally get detached from all other things, and then naturally you will not hate anybody. Naturally, you will love everything else, because all around, whatever you see all around you, you love that. You don't hate anybody. So this love becomes an automatic, say, quality of yours. Loving all humanity becomes an automatic quality of a great devotee. Like Prahlada. Prahlada is again a very great example. The Hiranyakashipa was sending all elephants and all those things. Elephant to trample this boy, but then elephant also would not trample that boy, because Prahlada was one who was not hating anything. So when you don't hate anything, other animals also, all people, they love you also. When you love everybody, they also love you. That is what we saw only yesterday in, what is that, Kenopanishad? Sarvani bhutani, abhi sarvani bhutani samvanchanti. So, when this man loves the whole universe loves him, the whole universe respects him as though this, and they also worship him like that God. So, that is what Kenopanishad says. So, like that, this is another, say, bhakti is a tool which, say, gives these virtues more easily than other strategies like karma yoga, or atma sanyama yoga, Patanjali yoga, etc., etc. Then, we also saw earlier in one shloka, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. You just give some leaf, you just give some flower, you just give a fruit, you just offer some water. The Lord is quite happy. He does not require any elaborate material. Whereas for the performance of a yajna or some other thing, you require elaborate material. So even a very, very ordinary man, a very, very lowly person, a very poor person, like Kuchela also, he can be a very great devotee. There is absolutely no class distinction. You need not have 1,000 rupee ticket or 2,000 rupees ticket. So even without anything, with 1 rupee, you can go and have darshan. So this is the strategy of bhakti. Then bhakti does not need any other prerequisites like shama, dhamma, etc., etc. So for example, all other things, they require shama, dhamma. For example, when you compare it with jnana, the path of jnana, jnanam, for example, this is the point by Swami Akhandananda Saraswati. He says, jnanam is like a VIP. How? Suppose some president comes, a president visits, and then there is so much of so elaborate arrangements. The police people make a lot of elaborate arrangements. There is so much of checking here and there. Some anti-sabotage checks are there. Some other squad will come, some dog squad will come, and all those checks are there. The whole area is sanitized, so the whole area is carefully kept for this gentleman's safety. So only then that say that President of India comes. So this say jnanam or the knowledge or Brahma jnanam is something like that VIP. It can come only when your mind is very, very pure. You should have achieved all those shama, dhamma, all that shamadhi, shatka, sampatti, and then chitta shuddhi, all those things should be there. That is all a prerequisite for that jnanam to come, isn't it? But for the sake of God, all that is not required. God, if you just show your love, He will come. It is something like our quotes. You just post a letter, we will take it up. So that is what post. So our quotes also say. So like that, God is somebody. The moment you call, He will come. So that is why bhakti does not need any other prerequisites like this shama, dama, and all these things. And then bhakti also leads to this shama, dama, vairagya. Bhakti slowly leads to shama, dama, vairagya, because your whole attention is on that God only. And then automatically you will achieve all other virtues like shama, dama, etc. Jnanam may come and occupy, like a VIP, it comes and occupies the throne when everything is kept ready. But bhakti is not like that. Bhakti is there in your mind, and then when bhakti is there, automatically it pulls from the other side. Then bhakti is also compared to, the way how bhakti operates. This is again an example given by this Akhandananda Saraswati. He quotes one point. He says, Bhikshu Pada Prasarana Nyaya. Somebody was staying in a small hut, a very, very small hut. And then some saint came, and then saint wanted some space. So, okay, this saint came, and then some sort of sadhu, let us say. The sadhu came, so this householder gave him some space. So that man was just having adequate space to sit. But then slowly he started stretching his legs, stretching his hands, and then he slowly occupied the whole small little cottage. So like that, God enters slowly and then slowly occupies the whole mind. When you invite God into your mind, He comes slowly and then drives away all other things and He occupies your house. Bhikshu Pada Prasarana Nyayam. And if you want to use a modern example, Arab and the camel. Arab and the camel is another story which we know. The camel slowly enters and drives away the Arab, isn't it? So, that Arab and the camel story you must have heard. So like that. But here of course the example, our Samskrita Nyaya is Bhikshu Pada Prasarana Nyaya. So that sannyasi comes, that sadhu comes, and then slowly occupies the whole cottage. So likewise, God also slowly enters the heart and drives away all other unwanted things. So that is another good things, which another good comparison between bhakti and other things. Then in Karma Yoga, again comparing with Karma Yoga there are so many rules. Rules means you have to recite some mantras. You require so many pujaris to come, so that man has to recite the mantras in a very, very perfect way. So all these udatta, anudatta swaras, so there should not be any defect in those swaras. If there is any defect in those swaras, again it will it will have some adverse effect on the fellow. So all these problems will be there. But then in bhakti there are no rules. Love knows no rules. So like that, there are no rules in this bhakti channel. Bhakti does not require all these things like this asana, pranayama, etc., and all those things, they are not there. So there is no physical strain, there is no financial strain. What all you have to have is just invite that person very, very honestly into your mind. So that is another comparison. Then another comparison which is given by Swamiji is, mind is something like a wax. Mind is something like a wax. It melts when there is an emotion in the mind. Normally, whenever you are emotionally, excited, whether it is for the right reason or wrong reason, your heart melts. You see, you just find some change in the heart, in the very system of the functioning of the heart changes whenever there is an excess joy, or whenever you are having some other feeling, some feeling of sorrow, the heart melts. So here, bhakti is an emotion. It is a positive emotion, which melts the mind, and then it is easy. It is easy to remove all these bad things from the mind, and then imprint some good things into the mind. So when the mind is melting like this wax, it is easy to remove all these bad samskaras and imprint new samskaras. This is another point which you have to note. It is something like a seal which can be printed on a molten wax. Suppose there is a molten wax. So on that molten wax, you can print seal more easily. So like Shakespeare says somewhere, women's waxen hearts. Women's hearts are supposed to be waxen. It is something, it melts like a wax. So and then in those women's waxen hearts, handsome people, they print their say forms. So that is what Shakespeare says somewhere. So it is like that. So when this bhakti melts your heart, it is easier to remove all the dross. Dross means dross, dross, all unwanted material, and then imprint whatever you want, whatever positive samskaras you want. So it is something like that. So bhakti is, again, another point is, bhakti is not to please Ishvara, but to purify ourselves. It is not something for pleasing that man, but basically when you are emotionally involved, you are purifying yourself. And then bhakti is also compared to a sort of relationship between lovers. The bhakta or a devotee is compared to the lady love. The god is compared to be the lover. So when you are trying to go, say for example karma yoga, a karma yoga you have to slog and then you have to reach God, isn't it? So suppose this lady love, you have to cross the river and go. A karma yogi has to cross the river and go. He has to jolly well make all effort to cross the river and go. And in the case of bhakti, it is not like that. You try to cross the river, the lover comes and picks you up. The lover comes and picks you up halfway through and then takes you there. So it is compared to that. So it is called Prema Rupa. Narada Bhakti Sutra, if you see, this Satu Asmin Parama Prema Rupa Amruta Swarupa. Even when you are in the process of bhakti, it gives you a lot of say bliss, that happiness is there in bhakti. That happiness or bliss may not be there in karma yoga. Karma yoga, you may have some satisfaction, but then that bliss is not there. But in bhakti, even when you are practicing, that particular bliss is there. This is that say Narada Bhakti Sutra Parama Prema Rupa Amruta Swarupa. This is that say Bhakti Sutra 3. So this eternal this prema is our say attitude to the God. Prema or love, pure love is our attitude to the God. It is the external appearance. But internally, the essence of that is Amrutam, Amruta Swarupa, Rupa and Swarupa. These are two words. Asmin Parama Prema Rupa. Prema is the Rupam. Amruta Swarupa. Amrutam is the Swarupa. So that is what say we see some of the points which I just noted down from say this Narada Bhakti Sutras. So this Narada Bhakti Sutra, I advise you to read. So then let us come back to this thing, because this by way of introduction I wanted to tell you the basic, the importance of bhakti, because bhakti is something which we should not say deride. It is a very, very important factor. In fact, moksha sadhana samagriyam bhaktireva gariyasi. That is what say Shankaracharya also says in Viveka Chudamani. Moksha sadhana samagriyam bhaktireva gariyasi. Of course, in the very second line he says swaswarupānusandhānam bhaktirityabhidhīyate. So, of all the samagri, of all the material which is available for the human being to attain that moksha, bhakti is the greatest. And how do you define bhakti? Swaswarupānusandhānam bhaktihi ityabhidhīyate. That is, knowing your own self, Swarupa Anusandhanam, that Atma Anusandhanam or Brahma Anusandhanam. Brahma is the same as Atman, that sort of Anusandhanam. That application, Anusandhana actually means application of that idea to you. Continuous application of that idea is called Anusandhanam. So that sort of Anusandhanam is bhakti at that higher level. So that is what we saw, that Nirgunopasana. Sagunopasana, we are now talking about this Arjuna's predicament. We are talking about our predicament, where we are we are following this strategy of bhakti in order to cleanse all the dirt from the minds and then achieve this nirvaira sthiti, where you have love towards all the beings, and then from there you are by the grace that you deserve that divine grace, and the divine grace falls, and then you achieve that the process of Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Your mind is totally fit, and then you will automatically you are eligible to understand it straight away. So this is the background. विश्वरूपाध्याये तु दर्शयित्वा उक्तवानसि मत्कर्मकृत् इत्यादि. लेट अस रीड. अतः अहम् अनयोः उभयोः पक्षयोः विशिष्टतर बुभुत्सया त्वां पृच्छामि इति. So अनयोः उभयोः पक्षयोः means between these two paths. What paths? Nirguna path and the Saguna path. Vishishtatara bubhutsaya. Bubhutsa means desire to know. Vishishtatara bubhutsa means the desire to know which is greater. Vishishtatara. Vishishta means which is important. Vishishtatara bubhutsaya tvam pruchhami. I am asking you. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna uvacha. Evam satatayuktaye. Bhaktastvām paryupāsate ye chāpyaksharam avyaktam tešām ke yoga vittamāha. Okay. Evam satata yukta ye. Evam means in this manner. In what manner? That is what was referred to in that last shloka of 11th adhyaya. Last shloka, that is 11-55. That shloka, what does it say? The same what we read earlier. Mat karma krut, mat paramaha, madhyaji, sanghavarjitaha, etc. Mad bhaktaha, sanghavarjitaha, etc. etc. So in that manner, evam means in that manner, satata yuktaha, always yukta. Yukta means one who is very steadfast. Yoked. Yukta means yoked. One who is steadfast in your devotion. Steadfast, one who is not swerving from your devotion, one who is so totally dedicated to you. Evam satata yuktaha ye bhaktaha tvam paryupasate. Those bhaktas, ye bhaktaha means those devotees who worship you. Tvam, you, paryupasate. Paryupasate means pari plus upasate. Those people who worship you, that is one category. That is, what category is that? That is the ordinary category, manda, madhyama category of devotees. Then we have also seen the other type of jnanis, the people who are capable of contemplation. So that is referred to in the next line. That is Uttamadhikari, what we call. Uttamadhikari, the top level student who is capable of understanding the meaning of Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, etc. etc. So that is the second line. Ye cha api aksharam avyaktam. Ye cha api aksharam avyaktam. Ye cha, and those who. Ye cha, those who, aksharam avyaktam. Aksharam avyaktam, upasate is the word here. Upasate is the verb. Aksharam upasate, aksharam avyaktam. Aksharam is that imperishable Brahman. Avyaktam, that unmanifest. Unmanifest here we should not take Maya. Unmanifest, depending on the context, we refer to either Maya or we refer to the Supreme Brahman. In this context we are referring to the Supreme Brahman. So, ye cha aksharam avyaktam upasate. Tesham means between those two, between these two groups. There is one group which is doing upasana of this Ishvara. There is another group which is knowing about that Supreme Brahman, Aksharam Brahma. Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Who are the people who know yoga well? Who are the people who know yoga better or best rather? Yoga vittama. Tara, tama, you know those words. Tara means comparative degree. Tama means superlative degree. Yoga with taraha, yoga with tamaha. Yoga with means one who knows that yoga. Yoga with taraha, knows it better. Tara, better. Bahutara, better. Then best, that is who are the people who know best? Yoga with tamaha. Tara and tama. Tama is superlative. So who are those people who know yoga best? And what is this? What is the meaning of this yoga here? Yoga means a strategy for moksha. Mokshopaya. Yoga, we should not confuse with Patanjali yoga or karma yoga or some other yoga. The problem with Gita is, in every context, you have to carefully see the letters. You have to carefully use the words, understand the words. Otherwise, we may have some vague meaning without knowing what exactly that word means at that particular place. Yesha, Tesham, Ke Yoga Vittamaha. Who are the people who know the strategy best? Strategy means strategy for attaining moksha. Strategy for attaining jnana. Moksha means moksha is only possible by jnana. So which is better? So that is the question. एवमिति
एवमिति
अतीतानन्तरश्लोकेन
अतीतानन्तरश्लोकेन
उक्तमर्थं परामृशति
उक्तमर्थं परामृशति
मत्कर्मकृत् इत्यादिना.
मत्कर्मकृत् इत्यादिना.
Okay, एवमिति, that word evam refers to अतीतानन्तर श्लोक. Atita anantara, that is immediately preceding. Atitanantara means immediately preceding verse. What is that immediately preceding verse? The last verse of the 11th chapter. Then shlokena bhuktamartham paramrshati. Paramrshati means it refers. Paramarsha. Paramarsha means speaking to somebody, isn't it? Paramrshati. That is, it refers to that particular shloka. Matkarmakrut ityadina. So there, what was advocated there? It was in the Karma Yoga was advocated there. Bhakti was also advocated there. So that is it. Let us read. Evam satata yukta nairantaryena bhagavat karmadau yathokte arthe samahitaः santah
यथोक्ते अर्थे समाहिताः सन्तः
प्रवृत्ता इत्यर्थः. ये भक्ताः अनन्यशरणाः सन्तः त्वां यथादर्शितं विश्वरूपं पर्युपासते ध्यायन्ति. Okay. So, evam, in this manner, satata yuktaha. He is explaining the word satata yukta. Satatam means nairantaryena. Nairantarya means without leaving any gap. Antaram means gap. Nirantaram means no gap. Nairantarya is that state where you leave no gap at all. So nairantaryena. So in that manner, so you are involved in that state of Brahman, say devotion. Not Brahma consciousness. You are in that state of Brahma devotion. Nairantaryena bhagavat karmadau. Bhagavat karma means whatever karma is entrusted to you, whatever is enjoined on you, you are doing it with Ishwararpana Buddhi. In addition to that, you are increasing the component of bhakti. In Karma Yoga, component of bhakti may be small. In bhakti, your regular karma may be there, but then that becomes secondary. Your regular karma becomes secondary, bhakti becomes primary. So that is one basic thing, because Karma Yoga, it does not totally exclude Bhakti. Karma Yoga is having some element of Bhakti. But here Bhakti Yoga, that Bhakti predominates and Karma Yoga recedes. It becomes subsidiary or secondary. Bhagavat Karmadau yathokte arthe samahitaha. Yathokte arthe means yathokta, that which has been told earlier. Arthe samahitaः santaha. Samahitaha, those who have fixed their mind on that. Samadhi, we know. Samadhi, the word samahita is from the same word samadhi. Samahitaः santah pravruttaः. Then ye bhaktaः ananyasharanaः santah. You say this bhakta ananyasharanaः. We saw this word ananyasharana means there is no other refuge other than you. This ananyasharana also is again a word which was used in the 11th chapter. At the end of the 11th chapter, the word ananyasharana was used. Ananyasharana. Na anyaha sharanam yasya. Sa ananya sharanah. That is, there is no other refuge other than this. So that refuge is that Supreme Ishvara only is the refuge. There is no other refuge. So that is the meaning. So that is, he is dedicated to this Ishvara, to Ishvara only. Ananya sharanah santaha tvam yathadarsitam vishwarupam. That is, that Vishwarupa. These people are devoted to that Vishwarupa only. Paryupasate dhyayanti. You are referring to this category of people who have fixed their attention, their whole devotion on this Vishwarupa. So that is this line. Then we are coming to the next category, that is the Jnanis. Yecha anye api tyakta sarvaishanaah सन्न्यस्त सर्वकर्माणः यथा विशेषितं ब्रह्म अक्षरं निरस्त सर्वोपाधित्वात् अव्यक्तं करणगोचरं. Okay, we'll stop here. Ye cha anye, the others. Anye means others, those others. Who are they? Tyakta sarvaishanaah. All these yeshana, we know this dareshana, putreshana, vitteshana, those yeshana trayam we know. So all those eshanas, all those desires, they have discarded all those desires. Then sanyasta sarvakarmanaha, they have also renounced all action, so such people. Then yatha visheshitam brahma, that is the Brahman which has been described as above, as earlier, yatha visheshitam, that is akshara parabrahma, aksharam, avyaktam. So which the Brahman which has been described in such words as aksharam, avyaktam, satyam, jnanam, anantam, akhandam, avikari, all those words are there, isn't it? Asthulam, ananu, aswalpam, adhirgham, all these things are there. Not this, not this, not this. So in that manner, nirasta sarvopadhitvat, all these upadhis have been discarded. Nirasta means discarded. Nirasta sarvopadhitvat aksharam, because all these upadhis have been discarded. So that is why it is called aksharam. When you have an upadhi only, you are sharam. When you have an upadhi, that upadhi dharma is to decay, isn't it? Upadhi, body-mind complex is an upadhi. This Maya itself is an upadhi. That Maya itself is something which disappears also. So this Maya Vachanna Chaitanyam also is a sort of upadhi. Maya, so that upadhi again disappears, isn't it? So here, nirasta sarvopadhitvat aksharam, because there is no, say, upadhi. All the upadhis have been, all the delimiting factors have been discarded. So that is why it is called aksharam. Then avyaktam. The meaning of avyaktam is, that is akarana gocharam. Karanam means indriyam, sense organ. Akarana gocharam, it is beyond the sense organs, beyond the mind, beyond comprehension. So that is the meaning. Then yadhi loke karana gocharam,
yadhi loke karana gocharam,
tad vyaktam uchyate,
tat vyaktam uchyate,
anjehe dhatoh,
anjehe dhatoh,
tat karmakatvat,
tat karmakatvat,
idam tu aksharam tad viparitam,
idam tu aksharam tad viparitam,
शिष्टैश्च उच्यमानैः विशेषणैः
शिष्टैश्च उच्यमानैः विशेषणैः
विशिष्टं तद्
विशिष्टं तद्
ये चापि पर्युपासते.
ये चापि पर्युपासते.
Okay, we'll stop here. The sentence is not yet completed. So, yadhi loke karana gocharam. Whatever is comprehensible by the indriyas. Karana gocharam means that which can be comprehended by the indriyas, by the senses. That is called vyaktam. Vyaktam, actually Shankaracharya is going to say some explain the grammatical point also here. Not grammar, the etymological meaning of the word vyaktam. Vyaktam is V plus akta. Is vyakta, isn't it? The word akta comes from a dhatu called anji. Anju dhatu. Anja dhatu plus you know the kata form. Kata pratyaya. Bhunj plus kata becomes bhokta. Gam plus kata becomes gata, isn't it? Gam plus gata means that which has gone. Bhokta, that which has been eaten. Supta, that is slept. So something like that. That kata pratyaya indicates something which is already happened, isn't it? So this anj plus kta becomes akta. That is getting manifested. That is we use the word prakata. Prakati bhavati. Prakata means it becomes manifest. So that is the meaning of anja dhatu. Anja dhatu, the very meaning is to get manifested. So V plus anja plus kata becomes vyakta. So that is what Shankaracharya is saying. Yadhi karanagocharam tad vyaktam uchyate anjehe dhatoh tat karmakatvat. This anja dhatu does that job. Tat karmakatvat means the anja dhatu does that karma. Does that karma means that is getting manifested. Tat karmakatvat, that dhatu, anja dhatu, it actually means getting manifested. So that is why it is called vyaktam. Whatever is known to the indriyas is called vyaktam. Then idam tu aksharam tad viparitam. This particular thing which we are now referring to is that aksharam which is totally different from that. Then shishtaischa uchyamanaihi visheshanaihi. Shishtai means by all learned people, by all these realized people, not learned, realized, you can note down. Jnanibhihi, Shishtaihi means Jnanibhihi. What does your book say? Your book says Shishtaihi or any other word?
Shishtaischa.
Okay, fine. Shishtaihi. My book also says Shishtai. Shishtaischa Uchyamanaihi Visheshanaihi. Jnanibhihi Uchyamanaihi Visheshanaihi. All these wise people, all the realized persons, they give these Visheshanas, and then tad ye chapi paryupasate. So those who do upasana, that is anusandhanam, that is application of those words like Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, etc., etc. So that is what is called upasana in the context of Jnanis. Jnanis upasana means anusandhanam. Anusandhanam means application. So then tesham ubhayesham madhye ke yogavittamaha ke atishayena yogavidah ityarthah. Okay, tesham ubhayesham madhye, between these two groups, who are the people who are following the better strategy? Yoga vittamaha, I explained that word. That word is in the superlative. Atishayena yoga vidaha. Atishayena means of the highest order. Yoga vidaha of the highest order. So there is nothing beyond that. So that is it. Which is the highest path? Which is the most sure? Which is the surest path? So that is the meaning. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Ye tu aksharopasaka, not this shloka of course. Ye tu aksharopasakaha. Samyak darshino nivruttaishanaha. Is there anything else in your book? Nivruttaishanaha. Te tavat tishtantu. Tan prati yad vaktavyam. Tad uparishtad vakshyamaha. Ye tu itare. This is a small avatarika. So Shankaracharya is saying, Ye tu aksharopasakaha. So you first of all just wait for, say this, let the jnanis wait for some time. I will first tell about the bhaktas. So that is what is the meaning here. Ye tu aksharopasakaha samyak darshanaha. Those upasaka of Akshara Brahma, those people who are nivrutta, say samyak darshanaha. Samyak darshi means those who have the right understanding, people who have that right understanding of Brahman, and those who have discarded this Eshanas, etc., etc. Te tavat tishtantu, let them wait for some time. Te tavat, let them wait for some time. Tan prati yad vaktavyam, whatever I have to say about them, I will tell later. Tan prati yad vaktavyam tad uparishtad vakshyamaha. Uparishtad means later. Uparishtad vakshyamaha, I will tell later. Vakshyamaha, of course, Krishna is using in the plural, the royal we rather. In that vakshyamaha means we will say. We will explain later about those people. Let them wait for some time. But then let me tell about these bhaktas first. Suppose you are having somebody who is highly devoted to you, who is bringing tea right from morning, who is doing your service right from morning till night. So you want to show love to that man. So God's attitude seems to be like that. So first of all, you love somebody who is actually serving you from morning till evening, isn't it? So let us read this shloka. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. Mayi aveshya mano yemam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya parayopetaha te me yuktatama mataha. So those people who have fixed their devotion in me, Mayi aveshya manaha, Mayi in me, Manaha aveshya, having fixed their mind in me. Avesha, we know the word avesha, avishati. Avesha means something like a possessed person. You are possessed by that. So here of course, he is not possessing God, he is fixing his mind in that God. So Manaha Mayi aveshya, that mind has been fixed in that. Then ye mam, those who, mam, me, Nitya yuktaha upasate. Upasate means those who worship me. Nitya yuktaha, always steadfast in their devotion. Nitya yuktaha, always steadfast, firm, unswerving in their devotion. Then shraddhaya paraya upetaha. Paraya shraddhaya. Shraddha means devotion, that commitment. Shraddhaya paraya. Para means supreme. This para word is an adjective for shraddha. Paraya shraddhaya, supreme devotion. With that supreme sense of devotion, upetaha. Upetaha means those who are associated, those who are having that characteristic. Upetaha. Te me yuktatama mataha. Those people, they are yuktatamaha. I love them most. Yukta tamaha means, in my view, mataha means they are deemed, they are considered by me. Mata word we have seen in Kenopanishad also. Manadhatu. Matam means with that which is deemed, that which is say accepted or agreed. So in that sense, te me yukta tamaha mataha. I consider them as yukta tamaha. Those who are very well yoked with this jnana, yoked with, not jnana, with this bhakti yoga. So in that sense. But here of course we have to again see the meaning of yukta. We will see that in the next class, because this yukta does not refer to jnana yoga. It only refers to this bhakti. Yukta tamaha. They are the people who are supposed to be very perfect. So in that sense, perfect means they are very perfect devotees. So I love them most. So that is the meaning. So we'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.